هلموت گابل هستم که در مورد وضعیت دراویش ایران صحبت
Thank you for everybody for being here. Thank you for inviting us to talk about persecution, and persecution. Life in Iran could be quite different nowadays, when instead of restricting all kinds of rights, violating all kinds of rights and human values, the power brokers of the political elite would foster human rights and respect for diversity. And as we heard before, Iran is the country of diversity. But they are not interested to do so. Iran has so many warm-hearted people, intelligent and creative people, wonderful landscapes, cultural achievements, and a variety of cultures, beliefs, and schools of thought. Life could be different when thoughts about creating a sound and healthy society in Iran would be based on human rights and not fought against by the regime under various excuses and pretexts. Our organization, which is the International Organization to Preserve Human Rights in Iran, highlights human rights violations in Iran. Additionally, we provide the intellectual background to understand how and why the ideology creators of the system think and argue as they do and act as they act, and cause actions from excited people like Basij. We do this because we think it is important to show the atrocity of this ideology towards human values and civilization in general. That may encourage each human being to stand up and voice their concern after understanding the danger for humanity. So it's not important to be Iranian, but it's important to be human. During this gathering, I would like to focus on the situation of the Dervishes in Iran, especially the dire situation of the Nematollahi Gonabadi order, headed by Dr. Nur Ali Tabandeh. As most of you know, Sufi dervishes are considered to be the mystics of Islam, meaning that they have rather an esoteric interpretation of Quran and in consequence practice values like tolerance, solidarity, peace, harmony with other people and denominations. Throughout the centuries, they had a deep impact on education and culture of Iran. Let me just label this fact before we precise on the current situation. It was Rumi, Hafiz, Shah Nematullah Wali, Saadi, and many other poets enchanted the hearts of Iranians throughout the centuries and still do today by reaching the hearts and minds even of people in Western countries. Now I will name some dervishes who face situations caused by the regime in Iran, which definitely must be addressed and criticized severely. Then I will bring the details and reasons for these unjust detentions. So we have in Shiraz, Adelabad prison, Saleh Moradi and Kasra Nouri. The situation of Saleh Moradi just changed. He was let out of prison, and finally there was a court sentence against him, which was lower than the time he had passed in prison without being put to court. There are some persons in Pelak 100, which is Bandesat in Farsi. I think it is belonging to Adelabad prison. There are persons like Syed Ibrahim Bahrami, Muhammad Ali Sadeghi, Muhammad Ali Dehtan, and Mohsen Esmaili, and many others. And in Evin prison, we have dervishes who were addressed as being guilty of spreading news about attacks on Dervishes in Kavar in September 2011. They are lawyers and journalists. Amir Eslami, Hamid Reza Moradi, Mustafa Daneshju, Amir Eslami, Reza Entesari, Afshin Karampur, Farshid Yadolahi, and Omid Behrouzi. So I will not talk about each one of them. In order to identify patterns of persecution, it is necessary to get into the depth of the matter. We should keep in mind that the regime has very absolutistic strategies, but very flexible tactics. What does that mean? The strategy to purge the society in Iran from each movement that has an alternative worldview is an absolute and fixed decision. To reach to this goal, the regime, the Nizam, applies various methods and tactics according to the answers of the Iranian society or the international community. The example we will give here is the hunger strike of the imprisoned Kasra Nouri, who was in a hunger strike for more than 90 days in Adel-Abad prison of Shiraz and had started a dry hunger strike. He was forcibly fed by drip infusion. Anyway, the goal of his hunger strike was to achieve that those 7 dervishes I mentioned of Evin prison, who were kept in solitary confinement, were brought back to the general ward. So finally, when Markus Löning, Federal Government Commissioner for Human Rights Policy and Humanitarian Aid at the Federal Foreign Office in Berlin, Germany, released a statement and Amnesty International started an urgent action for Kasra Nouri, finally the regime backed down, so Kasra Nouri's life was saved and the situation of the dervishes improved for a little while. There is concern between the regime officials about the image of the so-called Islamic Republic Iran in the world. If there is enough pressure on certain cases from the international community, the regime sometimes backs down and the process of purge is slowed down, or the tactics and measures of persecution change until the next outcry from the world stops the new tactics. Recently, the representative of Ali Khamenei at the universities, his name is Mozaireh Seif, he's the head of a new institution called Muasseseh Behdasht Ma'anavi. It is the Center for Spiritual Health. Described the necessity of a new strategy for persons who follow one of the groups which are classified under false mysticism. He complained, so Mr. Seif complained about the fact that jails would turn out as the universities, where imprisoned adherents of diverse beliefs convert their co-prisoners to their deviated belief. He alluded, so Mr. Seif alluded, that the minds of these adherents should either be changed before brought to prison, or special prisons for these persons should be built in order not to infect other prisoners with their worldview. So, my conclusion: if the international community is not aware of the illness of thoughts hidden behind the mask of a religious fascist government in Iran, the human rights violations will go on and on and on, and each year we might come together in Geneva for explaining one case after another and worry about which group will be targeted next by the regime. Thank you.